On a chilly December evening in 2024, Keanu Reeves walked through the bustling streets of Boston, wrapped in the cold embrace of winter. The city streets were covered in a thin layer of frost, and people hurried along the sidewalks, seeking warmth in the nearest buildings. Inside a small café called Cozy Corner, the atmosphere was different. Warm yellow lights bathed the walls, creating a comforting glow against the icy world outside. The café, nestled on a busy street corner, had long been a haven for weary souls. Students buried in books, elderly couples sharing quiet conversations, and office workers seeking a moment of peace before heading home. Among them was Mia Taylor, a 29-year-old waitress with a warm smile and bright eyes. She had been working at Cozy Corner for nearly a year, her kindness and dedication making her a favorite among the regular customers. To Mia, every guest was equal, deserving of respect and warmth regardless of their wealth or status. That evening, as the wind howled outside, a man entered the cafe, pulling his thick coat tighter around himself. He was tall, wearing a beanie that shielded most of his face. Unlike other customers, who walked in with chatter or laughter, he moved quietly, choosing a secluded table in the corner. Mia noticed him immediately, not because of who he was, because at that moment she had no idea, but because of his posture, the way he seemed exhausted, as if he carried the weight of the world on his shoulders. She approached him with her usual welcoming smile. "Good evening, sir. What can I get you tonight?" she asked. The man looked up, offering a faint smile. "Just a black coffee and something light," he replied, his voice deep and slightly hoarse. Mia nodded and walked away to prepare his order, not realizing that this simple moment would change both of their lives forever. When she returned with the coffee and a small plate of pastries, she noticed the man holding an ice pack against his hand. Her brows furrowed. "Are you all right? Is there anything else I can do for you?" she asked softly. The man, Keanu Reeves, though she still hadn't recognized him, simply smiled and shook his head. But his eyes, tired yet filled with warmth, conveyed something deeper. As the night continued, the cafe slowly emptied. Keanu finished his coffee and walked toward the counter to pay. He reached into his pocket, only to pause, his face subtly shifting. "I think I left my wallet in the car," he admitted, lowering his voice slightly, clearly embarrassed. The cashier hesitated, looking at the cafe's broken card machine. "I'm very sorry, sir. Our machine isn't working. Could you pay in cash instead?" Keanu patted his pockets again, then sighed. He didn't have cash on him. The embarrassment on his face was clear, but before he could speak, Mia stepped in. "It's all right, sir. I'll cover this for you." Keanu turned to her, surprise flickering in his dark eyes. "You don't have to do that," he said sincerely. "I can come back to pay once I get my wallet." Mia simply smiled. "It's just a small amount. I trust you'll return." For a moment, Keanu just looked at her. He wasn't used to strangers offering him kindness without expecting something in return. He had seen too much of the world to take it for granted. Finally, he nodded, his voice lower this time. "Thank you. I won't forget this." Mia thought nothing of it. Helping others was second nature to her, but what she didn't know was that this act of kindness would set off a chain of events that would change her life forever. As Keanu disappeared into the cold night, Mia turned back to her duties. She barely had time to process what had happened before the cafe manager, Mr. James, stepped out of his office. His face was stern, his eyes scanning the scene with a sharp gaze. "Mia," he said coldly, "did you just pay for a customer?" Startled, she turned to face him. "Yes, sir. The card machine wasn't working, and he didn't have cash, so I thought—" "You thought, Mr. James interrupted, his voice laced with disapproval. "This isn't a place for impulsive charity. The cafe has strict policies about handling money. You are not authorized to make those decisions." Mia's heart pounded. "Sir, it was just a few dollars. I only wanted to help." "That's not the point." His voice was final. "You broke the rules. I'm sorry, Mia, but starting tomorrow, you're no longer needed here." His words hit her like a freezing gust of wind. Fired for helping someone. She stood there, stunned, as Mr. James turned away. The warm cafe that had once been her refuge now felt suffocating. Slowly, she gathered her belongings, folding her apron with trembling hands. As she stepped out into the night, The city lights blurred through the tears in her eyes. She had only tried to do the right thing. What she didn't know was that fate had something far greater in store for her. The frigid night air stung Mia's cheeks as she stepped out of Cozy Corner for what would be the last time. Her breath came out in uneven puffs as she clutched her thin coat tighter around herself. Boston's city lights stretched before her, bright and indifferent, but for the first time in a long while, she felt completely invisible. Losing her job wasn't just a setback. It was a blow that felt personal, unfair, and deeply frustrating. The injustice of it clung to her more than the cold, making her chest feel heavy. She hadn't even asked for a name. She had only helped a stranger, yet that simple kindness had cost her everything. Mia stuffed her hands into her coat pockets, trying to think rationally. She needed to act quickly. Her rent was due in 2 weeks, her bills were piling up, and she had no safety net. Working at Cozy Corner hadn't exactly paid well, but at least it had been something steady. Now, she was left standing on the sidewalk, unemployed and uncertain of what to do next. She thought about calling her best friend, Lena, but dismissed the idea. Lena had her own struggles to deal with. She thought about applying to another cafe, but the reality of finding a job quickly in the middle of winter was grim. Just as she was lost in thought, her phone vibrated in her pocket. Pulling it out, she saw a text from an unknown number. Unknown. Hi. It's Keanu. The man from the cafe. I just found out what happened. Please, let me make this right. Mia blinked in confusion. Keanu? Her fingers hovered over the screen as she processed the words. How did he get her number? And what did he mean by make this right? A second message followed. Keanu, can we meet? I'd really like to talk. Her fingers hesitated before typing back. Mia, how did you find my number? Keanu, the cashier gave it to me. She felt awful about what happened to you. I know this is unexpected, but I don't want you to suffer because of something I caused. Mia exhaled slowly. It was still surreal to her that this man, who had only been another customer a few hours ago, was now offering to help. It wasn't every day that someone who looked like a regular guy turned out to be Keanu Reeves, the world-famous actor. And yet, she still hadn't processed it. Her fingers hovered over the screen again before she finally typed, Mia, I don't know, I appreciate it, but there's nothing you can do. A minute passed, then another. Her phone vibrated again. Keanu, just meet me for 5 minutes. If you don't want anything from me, I won't push. I just don't want to leave things like this. Mia sighed, glancing up at the sky. Everything inside her told her that accepting help wasn't in her nature. She had always believed in standing on her own 2 feet. But another part of her, the part that had just lost her job and was staring at an uncertain future, felt a pull toward something different. Something told her that if she walked away now, she'd regret it. So, against every instinct, she typed back, Mia, fine. Where are you? Mia arrived at a quiet corner of Boston's public park, where Keanu had asked to meet. It was late, and the streets were lined with Christmas decorations, the warm glow of string lights illuminating the bare trees. A few late-night joggers passed by, their breath visible in the cold air. Keanu stood near a bench, his hands tucked into his coat pockets, looking thoughtful. As Mia approached, he turned, offering a small, almost sheepish smile. He looked different now, without the beanie covering his face. More recognizable, but still just as grounded. I appreciate you coming, he said. His voice was just as deep and calm as she remembered from earlier. Mia shrugged, still wary. I figured it couldn't hurt. He studied her for a moment before exhaling. I want to help, Mia. What happened to you isn't fair, and I know you didn't ask for this, but I can't just walk away knowing that someone lost their job because of me. Mia sighed, shaking her head. It wasn't because of you, it was because of my manager. He's been looking for a reason to fire someone before the holidays. I just happened to give him an excuse. Keanu frowned, crossing his arms. That doesn't make it right. Mia let out a breathy laugh, rubbing her arms for warmth. Since when does life care about fairness? His gaze softened. Maybe it doesn't, but people do. For a moment they stood there in silence, the cold pressing in on them. Keanu reached into his pocket and pulled out a small envelope. He extended it toward her. Mia's eyes narrowed. What is that? She has something to help you get through this, he said simply. She took a step back, shaking her head. I can't accept that. Keanu sighed. I had a feeling you'd say that. He opened the envelope and took out a check, showing it to her. The amount made Mia's breath hitch. That's way too much, she whispered. It's not charity, he said gently. Think of it as a way to buy time, so you don't have to rush into another bad job just to make rent. Take a few days to figure out what you really want. Mia hesitated, her pride warring with reality. He gave her a small, knowing smile. If it makes you feel better, you can pay me back one day. Mia chewed on her lip, then finally reached out and took the envelope, her fingers shaking slightly. I don't know what to say. Keanu smiled. Then don't say anything. Just promise me you'll use it for something that makes your life better. She swallowed hard, gripping the envelope tighter. Why are you doing this? He hesitated for a moment, then sighed. Because a long time ago, someone helped me when I didn't have anything, and I never forgot how much that meant. Mia felt something in her chest tighten. Before she could think of what to say, Keanu spoke again. I have one more thing to offer, if you're willing to hear me out. Mia tilted her head. What is it? I have a friend who owns one of the best restaurants in Boston. They're looking for someone reliable. I told them about you. If you're interested, the job's yours. Mia's mouth parted slightly. You talked to someone about me? He nodded. I did. Mia stared at him, struggling to process everything. Hours ago, she had been fired. She had walked into the night thinking she had lost everything. Now Keanu Reeves was standing in front of her, offering her a lifeline. I don't know what to say, she admitted. Say yes, he said simply. Mia exhaled slowly. This was a second chance, and maybe, just maybe, she was ready to take it. With a slow nod, she met his gaze. Okay. Keanu's face broke into a genuine smile. Good, then let's start over. And with that, everything changed. The next morning, Mia woke up to the soft glow of winter sunlight filtering through her curtains. For a brief moment, she forgot the turmoil of the previous night. The scent of fresh coffee from a neighboring apartment filled the air, and for a few blissful seconds, everything felt normal. Then, reality set in. She was unemployed, but this time something was different. Keanu's offer lingered in her mind, the check tucked safely inside her bedside drawer, the job opportunity still waiting for her answer. The idea of working in a prestigious restaurant was both exciting and terrifying. It was an entirely different world from the small, intimate cafe she had grown used to. Could she really step into something new so quick? She pulled out her phone, staring at the text Keanu had sent the night before. Keanu, take your time, no pressure, but the offer stands. A part of her still couldn't believe it. Deciding she needed fresh air, Mia threw on her coat and left her apartment, her boots crunching against the frost-covered sidewalk. The city was alive as usual, cars honking, pedestrians wrapped in scarves, and the scent of roasting chestnuts wafting from a street vendor. She walked aimlessly, lost in thought, until she found herself standing in front of a sleek, upscale restaurant named Vera's. Through the large glass windows, she could see the staff inside, waiters in crisp uniforms, chefs moving with precision in the open kitchen. Everything about it screamed high-end. Mia hesitated. This was way out of her comfort zone. She was about to turn back when the restaurant door opened. A well-dressed woman with sharp eyes and an air of authority stepped outside, pulling her coat tighter against the cold. She spotted Mia and arched a brow. "You Mia?" Mia blinked. "Yes. How did you—" The woman smirked. "Keanu told me you might show up." Heat crept into Mia's cheeks. "He really did talk about me." "He sure did," the woman said, looking her over. "I'm Vera. I own this place, and if Keanu says you're good, I believe him. Let's talk inside." Before Mia could second-guess herself, she followed Vera into the restaurant. Inside, the atmosphere was warm, sophisticated, and buzzing with energy. The open kitchen allowed guests to watch their meals being prepared by a team of focused chefs, and the rich scent of garlic and butter filled the air. Vera led her to a small office in the back and gestured for her to sit. "I'll keep this short," Vera said, crossing her arms. "We need someone reliable, good under pressure, and great with customers. Keanu said you fit the bill. So, tell me, are you?" Mia straightened her posture. I like working with people, and I work hard. I don't have fine dining experience, but I'm a fast learner. Vera studied her for a moment, then nodded. Fine dining is different from cafes, but good service is good service, and you don't strike me as the type to slack off. Mia exhaled, a flicker of hope rising in her chest. So, does this mean I have the job? Vera smirked. You start Monday. Mia blinked. Just like that? Like that. Excitement bubbled in her chest. Thank you, I won't let you down. Good, now go celebrate or something. Mia left Vera's in a daze, barely feeling the cold anymore. She had a new job, a fresh start, and somehow Keanu Reeves had played a part in it. By the time Monday arrived, Mia felt equal parts excited and nervous. She had spent the weekend researching fine dining etiquette, practicing balancing plates on one arm, and psyching herself up for the challenge ahead. Stepping into Vera's as an employee rather than an outsider felt surreal. She was immediately handed a crisp white apron and introduced to the team. Her first day was a whirlwind. Unlike Cozy Corner, where she had time to chat with regulars, Vera's was a machine. Efficiency, precision, and speed ruled here. The customers were wealthier, their expectations higher, and the menu far more complicated. At one point, she nearly dropped an expensive bottle of wine while setting a table, and another time she forgot which customer ordered the filet mignon instead of the lamb. But despite the minor hiccups, she found herself enjoying the rush, the energy, and the challenge. By the end of her shift, her feet ached, but she felt alive. You survived, Vera said, handing her a glass of water. Mia laughed breathlessly. Barely. You did fine, keep it up and you'll fit in here. Mia took a sip, letting the relief sink in. She had done it. A few weeks passed, and Mia slowly became more confident in her new job. She had memorized the menu, learned the restaurant's rhythm, and even started enjoying the challenge of keeping up with demanding customers. One evening, as she was setting a table for a VIP reservation, a familiar voice spoke behind her. How's the job treating you? She turned around, and there he was. Keanu stood in the doorway, a small smile tugging at his lips. Mia blinked in surprise. You again? You sound disappointed, he teased. She rolled her eyes, but a grin crept onto her face. What are you doing here? I wanted to see how you were doing, he said, glancing around. Looks like you fit in just fine. Mia exhaled, shaking her head. I'm managing. Some days are tough, but it's a good job. Better than the cafe? Keanu nodded, looking pleased. I'm glad. You deserve this. Mia hesitated before speaking. I never really got to thank you properly. Keanu smirked. You thanked me by taking the opportunity. She shook her head. No, really. You didn't have to do any of this, but you did. And I'll never forget it. Keanu studied her for a moment, then said simply, Kindness shouldn't go unrewarded. Mia felt something warm settle in her chest. They stood there in silence for a moment, before Keanu finally clapped his hands together. All right, I should probably let you get back to work before Vera kicks me out. Mia chuckled. She might, actually. He grinned, stepping back toward the door. Take care, Mia. She watched as he left, something unspoken lingering between them. She didn't know if their paths would cross again. But she knew one thing for certain. Her life had changed, all because of a single act of kindness. And she would never take that for granted. The following weeks passed in a blur. Each shift at Vera's pushed Mia further out of her comfort zone. The demanding environment forced her to become sharper, faster, and more adaptable. Mistakes weren't tolerated for long, but she learned quickly. By the end of the month, she no longer second-guessed herself when rattling off wine pairings or weaving between tables, balancing multiple plates with precision. But it wasn't just about work. Something had shifted in her personal life as well. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to dream beyond mere survival. The security of a steady income, the thrill of learning new skills, and the quiet but undeniable confidence she was developing changed the way she carried herself. One evening after closing, Mia sat at the staff table, nursing a cup of coffee while scrolling through her phone. A message from Lena popped up. Lena, I saw your restaurant in a magazine today. Fancy. Are you secretly a celebrity now? Mia snorted, shaking her head before typing back. Mia, hardly. Just trying not to get fired in a place where people know how to pronounce foie gras. Lena, speaking of celebrities, did you hear? Mia paused, her fingers hovering over the screen. Mia, hear what? A few seconds later, Lena sent a link. Mia clicked on it, and a headline filled her screen. Keanu Reeves, seen at Boston charity event, rumored to be expanding philanthropy efforts. The accompanying picture showed him at a fundraiser, shaking hands with the event organizer. But what caught Mia's attention wasn't the headline. It was the last paragraph. Sources close to Reeves say he has recently taken an interest in supporting small businesses and individuals who have shown extraordinary kindness. While the actor has always been known for his generosity, insiders reveal that a recent encounter in a local café inspired him to take an even more hands-on approach in giving back to communities in need. Mia's breath caught in her throat. She reread the words 3 times, her mind whirling. Could it be her? She shook her head. No, that was ridiculous. Sure, Keanu had helped her, but she was just one person. He must have countless experiences like that. And yet, the way he had looked at her when he said, kindness shouldn't go unrewarded. The way he had gone out of his way to make sure she had a second chance. It wasn't just about her. It was about something bigger. Mia took a deep breath and locked her phone, staring into the dark surface of her coffee. Maybe, just maybe, the world needed more of what she had done that night at Cozy Corner. A month later, Mia had fully settled into her job at Vera's, but something inside her still felt unfinished. The thought of Keanu's words, the way he had encouraged her to embrace new opportunities, kept lingering. Then, one evening, as she was clearing a table, she overheard a conversation at the bar. I don't know what to do, man. Rent's due and I barely have anything left after groceries. Mia's ears perked up. She recognized the voice. It was Caleb, one of the bus boys. He was young, barely out of high school, and always stayed late to help clean up. She glanced toward the bar, where he was talking to Ethan, another server. Maybe you could ask Vera for an advance, Ethan suggested. Caleb shook his head. I already did. She helped once, but I can't keep asking. Mia hesitated. She knew the feeling, the weight of financial stress, the way it gnawed at the back of your mind. Before she could second-guess herself, she walked over. Caleb. Both men turned. Hey, Mia. Caleb offered a tired smile. She took a deep breath, then slid a folded bill onto the counter. Consider it a loan, she said softly. Caleb blinked. Mia, I can't. You can, she said firmly. I know what it's like to be in that spot. Take it. Pay me back when you can. Caleb looked at the bill, his throat tightening. Why are you doing this? Mia smiled slightly. Because someone once did it for me. For a moment, he just stared at her, as if struggling to find words. Then, finally, he nodded. Thank you. I won't forget this. Mia simply patted his shoulder and walked away. She didn't need him to repay her. She just needed to pass the kindness forward. That night, as Mia locked up the restaurant, her phone buzzed with a call. She glanced at the screen and nearly dropped her keys. Keanu? Heart-pounding, she picked up. Hello? His familiar, deep voice came through the speaker. Mia. Hey. She leaned against the door, trying to ignore the way her pulse spiked. Hi, this is unexpected. Keanu chuckled lightly. I guess it is. Listen, I know it's late, but I just wanted to check in. How's everything going? Mia smiled, looking up at the stars. Good, really good. I'm glad to hear that. A pause. Then, I heard about what you did tonight. Mia stiffened. How? Vera told me, Keanu said, amusement in his tone. She said you helped out a coworker, thought I'd be interested in hearing about it. Mia exhaled, rubbing the back of her neck. It wasn't a big deal. It was, he said, and you know it. Mia hesitated. I guess I realized something. What's that? She swallowed. That kindness isn't just something you give once. It's something you keep passing on. A long pause followed, then Keanu spoke, his voice quieter this time. That's exactly right. Mia smiled to herself, feeling something settle in her heart. She wasn't the same person she had been that night in Cozy Corner. She had lost her job, been forced into a new and unfamiliar world, and had grown because of it. And now she had the chance to do for others what Keanu had done for her. It wasn't about the money. It wasn't about the job. It was about being the kind of person who makes the world a little better, one small act at a time. And Keanu cleared his throat. I have a proposition for you. Mia raised an eyebrow. You've proven you have the heart for this, he said, and I could use someone like you in a project I'm working on. Mia frowned slightly. What kind of project? A foundation, Keanu explained, for people who've had a rough break, but just need one person to believe in them. It's still in the early stages, but I want to make sure it's run by the right kind of people, and Mia, I think you're one of those people. Mia's breath caught. You want me to be involved? I want you to help me build something that keeps this cycle of kindness going. For a moment, Mia couldn't speak. Then finally, she let out a quiet, almost disbelieving laugh. Keanu Reeves, are you offering me a job? Keanu chuckled. Something like that. Mia looked out at the city lights, her heart full. Her story wasn't just about a lost job, a chance encounter, or even the kindness she had been shown. It was about what she could do with it. With a slow, steady breath, she answered. And just like that, a new chapter began. The following weeks unfolded in a way Mia never could have predicted. She continued working at Vera's, settling into the rhythm of fine dining, but something had shifted inside her. Every interaction, every late-night conversation with coworkers, and every small act of kindness she extended felt like stepping stones towards something bigger. Her late-night calls with Keanu became a quiet constant. They didn't always talk about the foundation or the work he was building. Sometimes, they just talked about life. He shared stories about his early struggles in Hollywood, how he had once slept on friends' couches before his career took off. Mia told him about her childhood, how she had been raised by her grandmother, and how she had worked every job imaginable just to get by. There was an ease between them, a natural rhythm, as if they had known each other much longer than they actually had. One night, Keanu called while Mia was walking home. I have a surprise for you, he said. Mia smirked, kicking a small rock along the sidewalk. You do realize surprises make me nervous, right? Keanu chuckled. This one's worth it, I promise. She raised an eyebrow. Do I get a hint? Nope. Mia sighed. Fine, when do I find out? Tomorrow, he said. Be ready. And just like that, he hung up. The next day, Mia arrived at work, expecting an ordinary shift. But when she stepped into Vera's, she was met with a sight she never could have imagined. A group of reporters and cameras filled one side of the restaurant, their attention focused on a small podium. And standing at the center of it all was Keanu. Mia froze. What was he doing here? Before she could fully process it, Vera appeared at her side. Good, you're here. Go stand over there. She pointed toward the edge of the gathering. Mia hesitated but obeyed, feeling the weight of confusion pressing against her chest. Keanu stepped up to the microphone, clearing his throat. The crowd of journalists fell silent. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming, he said. Today, I want to talk about something that means a lot to me. He paused, scanning the crowd before his gaze landed directly on Mia. Over the years, I've been fortunate to experience kindness from strangers in moments when I least expected it. And not long ago, I was reminded of just how powerful a small act of generosity can be. Mia's breath caught. Keanu continued, because of one person's selflessness, I was inspired to take action. So today I'm proud to officially announce the launch of the Second Chances Foundation, a nonprofit dedicated to helping people who need just one opportunity to turn their lives around. A murmur of excitement rippled through the crowd. Keanu smiled. And I wouldn't have done this without the person who reminded me why this matters. Then, to Mia's utter disbelief, he gestured toward her. Mia Taylor, please come up here. Her heart nearly stopped. The cameras turned toward her and her stomach flipped. Vera nudged her forward. Go, she whispered, grinning. Mia's feet felt like lead as she walked toward the podium, her pulse hammering in her ears. When she reached Keanu, he smiled at her. I told you I had a surprise. Mia let out a breathy laugh, shaking her head. You're impossible. Keanu turned back to the crowd. This is Mia. She's the reason I started this foundation, and she's also going to help me run it. Mia's eyes widened. She hadn't agreed to that, had she? Keanu leaned in slightly, his voice just for her. Say yes. Mia exhaled slowly, then nodded. The crowd erupted in applause, and as Mia stood there, feeling the weight of the moment settle over her, she realized something.